Warning. This video contains graphic content. Viewers' discretion is advised.
Hi guys, and many thanks for joining. Today I want to talk to you about Gabriel Fernandez, an 80-year-old boy, a really sweet boy who was born in Palmdale, California on the 20th of February 2005. His dad, Arnold Contreras, and mom, Pearl Fernandez. Now, after Gabriel is born, his mom doesn't want him. So only at 3 days old, she leaves him in the hospital he was born in. And this is the first and most important thing you need to pay attention to, because a caring mom doesn't abandon her newborn child and then claims him back 7 years later. And we will find out more about this later on in the video. I mean, seriously, it is beyond me to comprehend how you can carry for 9 months a baby and then just abandon him. What kind of person are you to do that? This in itself, in this case, it's an alarm bell. After Pearl leaves him, Gabriel is taken into the care of his uncle, Michael Lemos Carranza, and his partner, David Martinez. Now, these two men, they help raise Gabriel for a couple of years. However, Gabriel's grandparents, Pearl's parents, are not very happy with with Michael's relationship, and put simply, they are not happy that Michael has a relationship with another man, so they take Gabriel from them. Can you imagine how this poor little boy is feeling at this point? He's in the loving care of his uncle, and then suddenly he has to go live somewhere else. Now, I can say that this boy, he has a tough life from the beginning. Now, there are split opinions out there about Pearl's parents. Some say they only took Gabriel into their care for the child support money, because obviously, being Pearl's parents, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? Pearl also states at one point that she was beaten and abused as a child by her parents, and her mother never showed her any love. At this point, Pearl Fernandez lives with her boyfriend, Isauro Aguirre. In 2012, Gabriel is taken away from his grandparents by Pearl to live with her boyfriend, and his siblings. At this point, it's pretty obvious that she only takes him for the money, for the child support money. The torture this boy endures in the following 8 months leads to his death. And this is a torture by his mom and her boyfriend. Now, try to imagine a cupboard, yeah? A cupboard which you use every day to keep your stuff in, yeah? A similar cupboard is now Gabriel's bed and room. A dark, tiny place where he is being handcuffed, gagged with a sock, blindfolded and locked, only allowed out to be beaten and abused. Imagine a little boy locked in the dark whilst his siblings are free to eat, are free to roam about, are free to sleep, are free to play, but you are only allowed to hear. Can you even imagine that? I mean, only imagining it makes my skin crawl, seriously. You can't see. You just want out, but there's no one there to help you. You would scream, but nobody who hears you will help you. And this is what a nightmare feels like. You're trapped, and there is no escape. No matter how much you pray for the escape, there's none. But the nightmare is reality for Gabriel. And I wonder, what did he do to deserve this? How can you even call yourself a human being and do something like this to your own child? He is in fact abused because Pearl and Aguirre believe he is gay only because he lived with his uncle and the partner, and he likes to play with dolls. But how I don't have any words. I don't. It's heartbreaking, really. In those 8 months that he is there, Pearl and Aguirre would bully him by making him wear girls' dresses. They would send him in girls' clothes at school. He would be beaten. He would be whipped. He would be forced to eat cat litter. And when he vomits the cat litter, he is forced to eat his own vomit. And he's tied up and locked in that cabinet, which they call the box. And his brother Ezekiel, he is sometimes forced to join in. Gabriel is forced to take cold baths whilst he's being pepper sprayed. And his teeth are knocked out with a baseball bat. And these are all the items of torture that both Pearl and Aguirre are using. Fists, feet, wooden club, wooden bat, broomstick, metal baton, belt, metal hanger, pepper spray, cat litter and feces, cold showers, metal handcuffs, data cable, lighter and cigarettes, icy hot, steel-toed boots, heated spoon, BB guns, and a cubby. Gabriel begs for help more than 8 times, but there is no one there to save him, and there is no one there to help him. The abuse continues, and he still goes to school. All he wants is for his mom to love him. And he loves his mom, and he always tells her that he loves her. He always makes sweet cards for her. Maybe, deep down, he believes that if he says it enough times, she will stop and love him back. In the months before being beaten to death, Gabriel asks his school teacher, Jennifer Garcia, some heartbreaking questions. He asks her if it's normal to bleed after being hit with a metal part of a belt. This poor little boy, he doesn't even know what's normal anymore. And he's also asking, is it normal for your mom to hit you with a belt? These are 2 of the questions Gabriel asks his teacher at school before she raises the alarm. She picks up the phone and she calls the hotline. She is told by Child Protection Services the report will be looked into. Stephanie Rodriguez is now assigned to this case. But nothing is done to remove Gabriel from the home. One day he walks into school with chunks of hair cut out in a random pattern at the top of his head. And under each patch he would have a bloody wound starting to heal. Can you imagine that? As if someone would be pulling chunks of his hair, and he's left with wounds, and these are starting to heal. At this point, his teacher, Jennifer, she notices a lump on his lip, on his lower lip, and she asks him what happened. And he says that his mom punched him in the mouth. So his mom punched him in the mouth. Really concerned, the teacher, she calls the principal into the room, and both agree that they need to call social services again. So Jennifer, naturally, she calls Stephanie again. Yet even now, Gabriel is still not removed from the home, and the worst is still yet to come. Gabriel shows up to school with bruises all over his face. And Jennifer recalls, and I quote, "He looked horrible. His eyes were all swollen, like a cat, kind of squinty looking, and he had bruises all over his face." Now the teacher is asking him what happened. At first, he says he fell, but then, after the persistence of his teacher, he does admit that his mom shot him in the face with a BB gun. Oh my God, this is so difficult to comprehend. I cannot even begin to imagine the pain that Gabriel is feeling day in and day out. I cannot understand, how can you do that to your own child? How can you be so inhumane? What's the satisfaction in this? And Gabriel still loves his mom. Jennifer is gobsmacked and she asks why he didn't say it to her the first time. Gabriel admits that now he's scared because each time Jennifer calls Stephanie and Stephanie goes over to the house, he gets beaten worse and worse. It's like Pearl is trying to send a message to his teacher to show her what can happen if she carries on calling Stephanie. At this point, Jennifer admits that she's quite scared to call, but still she does it. Now, according to the documentary The Trials of Gabriel Fernandez on Netflix, Stephanie visits the house to check on Gabriel. But when Gabriel admits he fell, she leaves it at that without any medical follow-up. I'm sorry guys, but in my view, you have to be an idiot not to see the obvious. It's not like Gabriel will say in front of his mom, oh, she hit me, oh, she beat me up. No, you will never hear an abused child say that in front of the abuser, and in this case, in front of his mom. And this is the worst and the biggest mistake that Stephanie does at this point. She leaves without following up, and I think that this fuels Pearl even more. Pearl now knows she can manipulate the caseworker and she's free to do whatever. Like, maybe she feels untouchable. Although people say that she has a low IQ and she's not very intelligent, I think she's damn smart at turning things around. She's damn smart at doing it. Not only that, but also sending your kid in a public place like the school with bruises and bumps and being hit like that. You are either insane or you are so narcissistic to the point that you are proud of what you did. Feels like you are doing it to show the world what happens if you dare to be gay or assumed gay in this case. I think that no, I don't think, I'm 100% certain that this was a hate crime. This is disgusting. It's beyond disgusting. I don't even have words to describe it. But it's more heartbreaking than anything else. At this point, Gabriel is off from school for 13 days. When he gets back, his injuries are worse than before. Jennifer sees poor Gabriel, and she says, "He looked horrible. His eyes were totally red. There was no white showing. His forehead had skin that looked like it had peeled off. He said he fell off a bike." Now the other kids in the class are scared. "He looked the worst I'd ever seen, but he'd been healing too. He'd been out 13 days, so I knew that was the healing version of those injuries." So if he was missing school for 13 days, can you even begin to imagine how badly hurt and injured this poor little boy was? For Pearl not to send him to school, he probably couldn't even open his eyes. Yet again, Jennifer calls Stephanie. But this time there's no callback. The school is working on a Mother's Day project, and Gabriel actually manages to pull a smile in a picture taken as a present for his mom on Mother's Day, with his bruises and injuries still visible. Now, I do know that Gabriel's injuries are very, very hard to ignore, but there's another major red flag here. Gabriel, allegedly, he writes a suicide note, which reads, "I love you so much that I will kill myself." According to the documentary, Pearl is the one handing the note over, saying he only did this for attention. The note is dismissed because Gabriel doesn't write a plan. So hold on a second. An 8-year-old boy would write a plan? A plan? Seriously? You can't expect an 8-year-old boy to write a plan of how he's going to kill himself. Come on, really? How can you be so ignorant of the obvious? This is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. We don't even know for sure if he even knew the meaning of killing myself. I know for a fact when my girl was 8 years old, she had no idea what killing yourself meant. Prosecutor John Hatami finds it surprising that Pearl would hand the note over to the counselor when she visited, but he believes that she does have an ulterior motive. Maybe her plan is to get rid of Gabriel. Prosecutor John Hatami is very close to this case simply because as a child he himself was abused by his father. Gabriel's grandfather, Robert, speaks with him, and all Gabriel wants at this point is to go back home. Upset, Robert promises him the DCFS will sort it out and he will be able to come home soon. Robert and his wife called the police previously and reported Aguirre kidnapped the boy, but yet again he was allowed to go to his mom. Robert and Sandra also warned the sheriff's department of Pearl's abusive history, but she still manages to take Gabriel away. Social workers now claim that they don't have enough evidence of abuse to take Gabriel away from Pearl. And of course they don't, because they don't do enough to investigate. It's blatantly obvious what's happening to this little boy. If you would go down the street, pass by him, and you would see him, you would know 100% that something bad is happening in that home. It's that obvious. All you need to do as a social worker is to, for God's sake, I feel like all you need to do is to properly investigate and take all the leads and all the reports and ask for a medical follow-up. For God's sake, it's so easy, and yet it wasn't done. I'm raging inside because, they have the means, they have the possibility to do it. That's their job, yet they haven't done it. And it cost this child his life. As it seems, on so many separate occasions, social services visit Gabriel, and oftentimes he is in fact locked and ganged in that cupboard so he wouldn't cry for help. And social services are the same ones that are satisfied he is okay even if they don't see him. They just take Pearl's word for it. This is disgraceful. From the same institution where you expect your child to be protected. From the same institution that is meant to deal with child abuse. And how are they dealing with this case? They allow Gabriel to die a horrible death. There are more than 60 reports being made by teachers, therapists, relatives concerned of Gabriel's safety, but he's still allowed to live there. Pearl's sister, Melissa Fernandez, seeing all the bruises and injuries on Gabriel, starts spending the nights at their house in the hopes that if she's there, Gabriel is not going to be abused anymore. But being underage herself, there's not much she can do about it. April 26th, 2013. Arturo Miranda Martinez, a former security guard at the LA's County Welfare Office, sees coming in the heavily tattooed Pearl with a bunch of kids, including Gabriel. Now Gabriel robs by his desk to grab his attention. Arturo notices straight away how bruised and beaten up he is. He also sees cigarette burns at the back of his head and injuries all over him. From a scale of 1 to 10, he is a 20. At this point, without his mom noticing, Gabriel holds up his arm with the other hand and looks at Arturo with the corner of his eye. Arturo is like, oh my God, this screams abuse. Even now, Gabriel doesn't give up. In silently screaming for help, he doesn't give up. Arturo goes straight away to Marisela Corona, the same clerk that Pearl just spoke to before they left. He is asking her if she noticed everything that was going on. She did, and she would contact her supervisor, but at this point her supervisor is telling her not to get involved. Arturo, seeing this, he is calling his own supervisor, and his supervisor is saying the same thing, not to get involved. Eventually, at the risk of losing her job, Marisela gives Arturo the family's name and contact information and urges him to help where she can't. So you see, there are some more people who are trying to help Gabriel, but their bosses don't allow them. Now you tell me, can you genuinely rely on a system like this? People who don't show empathy towards abused children, what are they? What are they? You tell me. Luckily, these two people, at the expense of losing their job, they still try to help. Arturo picks up the phone, he dials 911 to report this to the sheriff's office. They say they'll send 2 deputies at Gabriel's home, but he's still not removed from there. 22nd of May 2013. LA paramedics respond to a call of a child not breathing. Pearl called them and said that he fell in the bathroom. They arrive at the scene and they find Gabriel. As soon as they see him, they know immediately that something sinister happened. Gabriel is rushed to the hospital, where he is found to have a cracked skull, broken ribs, and 2 missing teeth. BB pellets are found in his lungs and groin, and he is covered in bruises and burn marks. Cat litter is found in his stomach, and his skull is left with the consistency of Rice Krispies. There's not an inch of him which is not covered in injuries. The first thing Aguirre says to the paramedics when they get there is that Gabriel is gay. It's like Aguirre at this point is trying to justify what he just did. It's unbelievable. It's so sad. It's really, really sad. On the day of Gabriel's death, Pearl drags the boy in the bedroom and Aguirre follows. The siblings say they hear screaming and shouting and crying from Gabriel as Pearl and Aguirre keep kicking him and punching him. And then, nothing. It's all gone quiet. And that's when it all stops, says Ezekiel. Gabriel is declared brain dead and tragically passes away 2 days later. Now you need to think about this. Gabriel is just 4 feet 1 inch tall and just 4 stones in weight, compared to the security guard Aguirre, who is a huge man. He's 6 feet 2 inches tall and 19 stones. Gabriel doesn't stand a chance. Pearl Fernandez is sentenced to life in prison and Aguirre is sentenced to death. During the trial, prosecutor John Satami tells the jury, and I quote, "This wasn't about drugs. This wasn't about mental health issues. Aguirre did it because he didn't like him. He believed Gabriel was gay, and to him that was a bad thing. He did it out of hatred for the little boy." Gabriel's last vision was that man over there standing over Gabriel, beating him to death. Gabriel's older siblings, Ezekiel 12 and Virginia 11, tell the court how Aguirre would punch and kick Gabriel and pick him up by the neck until he would pass out. Ezekiel says that Gabriel would be handcuffed and stuffed inside the box for hours on end with no food and no water. Aguirre and Pearl would laugh whilst beating him together and taunt him by calling him gay. Virginia tells the court how Pearl punched Gabriel so hard that she knocked 2 teeth out. They both say that Gabriel was the only one Pearl and Aguirre abused. But if Ezekiel would try to get involved and help Gabriel, his mom would beat him as well. Before reading out their sentences, Judge George G. Lomeli said, and I quote, "You want to say that the conduct was animalistic, but that would be wrong, because even animals know how to take care of their young, some to the extent that they would sacrifice their own lives in caring for their young." He continued, "I can only wish that in the middle of the night you wake up and you think of the injuries that you subjected on this poor young man, this poor 7-year-old, and that it tortures you." Believe me, this is the most heartbreaking case I've had to talk about. Now, whilst doing my research, I actually came across a comment from someone who spent time in jail with Pearl Fernandez. And this is what they say. I'll put it on the screen as well so you can see, but I'll also read it out loud. "She gets a lot of mail. Every day her name would be called multiple times, always something to do with the case or pictures of her son. She was one of my 8 bunkies in Sea Hall receiving a yard. She told us she was there for killing and setting on fire the man that had hurt her son. We didn't even know her son was dead. We knew she pled out to avoid being in 504. We would be walking to Chow and she would mention how she's happy she didn't get the death penalty. 504 is the creepiest building in the entire place. It had barbed wires all around, and when we are at yard and they walk the people on death row to medical, we had to turn around and face the fence and make no contact with them. Guess she liked the GP until some girls in B Hall knew she was there. They are from LA and knew about the case. Anyway, we all saw her get her face sliced up in Chow. The cops lost all control for a few minutes. It was complete chaos. I never saw her again after that. That was the first time I heard what she was really there for. Guess while in LA, Twin Towers, she met a weirdo named Abel and he writes her faithfully. They are engaged. He sends her pics of his kids and his dogs. By the way, she always cries out in her sleep. It all made sense to us later. I guess that when the judge wished them what he did, it sort of came true. And she's being tortured in her dreams. Thank you everyone so much for watching. And if you want to watch the documentary, it's called The Trials of Gabriel Fernandez on Netflix. I will leave this in the description below as well. If you have an account on Netflix, you just need to search up the name and it will definitely come up. But I need to warn you, it's very upsetting and it's also graphic. Thank you, take care and stay safe. Bye bye.